How to Kill a Vampire Using Vampire Disease. And I feel like whenever I say the word vampire, I was kind of going into a Transylvanian accent.
The difference between us is that I can feel pain.
Sounds like a real boogeyman once you Freddy's coming for you.
Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy.
There's someone else in the hotel with us. There's a crazy woman in one of the rooms.
It's got a death curse.
This isn't science. It's more like black magic.
Your specimen has been processed, and we are now ready to begin the test proper.
Coming to you live from just outside Dracula's castle, somewhere in Wallachia. Welcome to Pumpkin Hill Radio. I'm your host, Travis Wyrmwood. The skies are blood red as legions of night creatures tear through the countryside. The Brood Lord's face hangs over us, formed by a vortex of vampire bats. And, of course, all we have to fight back is whip. We got this whip. Is that enough? Oh, we are now the official, unofficial podcast of Castlevania. That's right, folks. Februvania is upon us. We've been waiting all year for this. Our Castlevania-themed month is here at Pumpkin Hill Radio, and we are absolutely doused in blood. Did you want to know everything there was about Trevor Belmont, the Bone Pillars, or Slorga and Gabon? Well, I don't know. We might get to that. Some of that's pretty deep lore. I like the weird shit. You know I do. But we'll see what we find here. I'll probably get into some of that obscure stuff by the end of the month. Planning on 4 episodes that are slightly adjacent to Castlevania. Again, welcome to Februvania. Not to scare off all the listeners who don't care about Castlevania. I assure you, you will care after this. Also, there's going to be plenty of segments that likely have nothing to do with this theme. So stay tuned. You never know. Before we kick things off, let's get down to the basics. This needs to be an orderly podcast, as it always is. Chaos will not prevail. I cannot allow it. So I'm just going to talk about horror this week for me. For me, I traveled this week. I got on a plane. Always just like it's a fear of mine, I think. It's a fear of like everybody, just like travel by flight. What? I'm not built for this. I'm simply not. But it's fine. It was fine. You know, there's fear of like getting sick from all the other passengers on the thing, or you hear about how just horrible people are on planes. So I'm glad to just be off of it again. While I was out on my adventures, though, back home, it was just generally a very foggy time. Like almost every day, it was very dense fog, especially, and then at night, even more to the extreme. It was lovely, but it just has that creepiness to it that I think that's a good horror. That's a good horror pinpoint on the trip, because the rest was lovely. The rest of the trip was lovely, but with that fog, it almost gave this uncanny valley feeling to this whole place it felt like Silent Hill. I was in Silent Hill. I wasn't confronted by anything nightmarish though, so I guess we're fine. Speaking of that, I did see that this week, I'm pretty sure this week at least, on Netflix, Silent Hill, from the 2002 movie that got released. I don't know if it's great. The games were always so fun to play. Kind of hard for me, at least, when I was a kid. But this movie, I'll pop it on at some point. I'll let it ride. I know that they got it on there because there is a sequel coming out this year, Return to Silent Hill. I'm pretty sure it's called. and I'm ready for that. And they're going to see a good pop on the numbers for that movie when the sequel gets probably an official trailer or whatever, if it hasn't already. Let's check out what else is in horror this here week. Oh, well, yes. So not just quite this week, but Joe Bob's Valentine Special is coming out. What is it? What are they calling it? Very Violent Valentine Special. There was a post on Twitter about it. It's a Shudder live feed. That's fun. I got Shudder. They're gonna do 2. Says here, Joe Bob tweeted 2 movies that will scare your crotchless panties off. And I don't know what movies they're going to be, but it'll be great. Joe Bob's real fun. Him and Darcy, the male girl. What else this week? Horror streaming highlights. What else is coming out? Oh, The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. That was released just today. I mean, not released. It's just available to stream on. It says Prime Video. I'm not trying to sell out any place specifically. I'm just telling you where to watch it. So The Fly, Joe Bob, that's coming out soon. We got like one more thing just to keep us occupied. So February 1st, which is today, The Butterfly Effect 1 and 2 are going to be streamable on HBO Max. Same with Antlers. Who's in that again? On Hulu, The Ring 2, Rosemary's Baby, The Shape of Water. Those are all coming out within either now or in the next 2 weeks. Those are all pretty good. Horror adjacent. Oh, The Exorcist on Netflix. That was just released on Netflix. Streamable. Speaking of that, I just bought a really nice Exorcist shirt that I got to wash before I put on because it was from Walmart, but I saw it. It was $8 and it's mine now. Steal. It was a hell of a steal. A lot of, The Book of Eli on February 1st. That's more of a weird action movie that like has like some Bible implications toward the end. The Addams Family movie from 91 also is streamable on Netflix now, so check that out. You want to check that out. If you got Peacock, you can watch Blade 1, 2, and 3, aka Trinity, and watch it. And I call that the trilogy. I'd save that more toward. Hopefully, that's straight on there for a while because I'd like to watch that more toward the fall time again. It's always a great Halloween time. And for those with Tubi, of course, check out Insidious: The Last Key. And you got some Resident Evils on here: Vendetta, Retribution, and Damnation, all on Tubi. If you have Tubi, send me an email. Tell me what a Tubi is. I want to know. And here's some stuff that's going to be leaving the streaming services soon, just so you know. Mars Attacks. It's leaving Netflix on February 28th. Hey, look at Mars Attacks. It's sort of like more of a comedy than a horror really at all, but especially as a kid, the animation and the claymation really freaked me out so bad. I haven't seen it in a while. This one I'll be streaming before the end of the month. We got 28 days to watch this thing on Netflix. I'm gonna watch it tonight. How about that? And that's sort of horror this week, from all angles. That's my personal stuff and mostly just what's streaming. And with that, I'd like to take us to our first segment. First segment, I'm just going to call it Castlevania, a quick peek at an old body. Or, get the kid out of the coffin. And that's an old kid Dracula marketing thing, get the kid out of the coffin. So, Castlevania to me is a lot of things. It sort of was hanging on the peripheral of my entire life. I think it was always a game that was just out of reach, just out of touch. Always like a little too old or on a different system. Something that intrigued me though. It's just like and then as you look more into it, it's like the first few especially are they're like the universal monsters made into this gothic kind of almost Halloween-y type game. It doesn't get what I would call this. It becomes like a AAA anime. That's what I watched. I watched all 4 seasons of that, and that is beautiful. But it only has nuggets of the original, really, because they're building more of a story than like for example, at the end, like the credits of the first game, I watched a speedrun of it, and at the credits, they don't even list the real creators. They say things like Boris Karloff as Frankenstein, who he is Frankenstein. They also say that Lugosi plays Death, and usually Lugosi plays Drac, but and fighting Death is a reoccurring event in these games. It's all about this. It gets more grotesque, I think, with each game. You end up with these piles of bodies acting as bosses. These whole rooms filled with like one skinless creature you have to fight. Things like that. Medusa has fun at you left and right. It's Some people call it a skeletons and swords game, which is that's kind of I like that because there's like there's different kinds. There's like that's a list, right? There's the sword and sorcery. There's like sword and sandal. That's more of like when you get into this like maybe some like Eastern type like samurai type stuff maybe, and then skeletons and swords, and I like that description. This thing rocks. I've been trying to play each of the games a little bit. I have the Castlevania Anniversary Collection on the Switch. I've been mostly just digging into the first game. It's so hard. And so I've also watched a speed run of it, and they beat the whole damn thing in 11 minutes flat. Well, maybe a little over, but it was remarkable to watch. No ads either. You just watch it. It's so much though. It's a AAA anime, as I said, with multiple series now. There's Castlevania and Castlevania Nocturne, which I still have to watch through all the way. It's definitely a bunch of video games on a bunch of consoles from past to present, almost none of which I had growing up. You could really like model your whole life after this, or at least a lot of it, between all the games, between the shows, between the extended universe of it all. I believe there's some comics and I don't even know. There are some and like I said, we are but novices on this first of Februvania. But by the end of this month, I want to come out knowing exactly who that Gabon fella is that I was talking about earlier. All I know about him so far is that he's kind of like a pterodactyl mixed with a skeleton man. Yeah. And that's just by looking at a brief picture. I also wanted to... Maybe we could just play some of these. I'm going to look up best Castlevania OST, which is original soundtrack. Hopefully we don't get a bunch of ads. I'm going to put it to mute to begin with. And I'm going to play some of that Castlevania OST. Let me just load that up. Because this game does a really good job of distinguishing itself from like a Metroid, which is what you get the Metroidvania. This is the other side of that coin. Yeah, really explored. This is called Gaze Up at the Darkness. Okay. We're going to go to the Simon Belmont theme, which is from the Super Castlevania 4. I haven't gotten to this one yet, but let's take a little listen. So that one it started out haunting and then it got very much arcade sounding. It sounded like I was at the arcade, which I love. Let's listen to this. Let's go to the back end of this. This one's called Sorrow's Distortion from Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. And see, that's one that I didn't even know existed. So I'm excited to explore that at some point. Wow, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Let's go to one more here. This one's called Bloody Tears from Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Let's take one more listen here. And thank you for indulging me. I saved that for last year. Yeah, that one makes me want to go on an adventure like right now. I should stand up and run out the door. And presumably fight that bad Drac and all his cohorts. Well, cool. Thank you for indulging me in that again. I think maybe I'll pull up a few more of those soundtracks as the weeks and the month pass by, just so we can explore that. It has a distinct theme, though, doesn't it? It's gothic but also upbeat, and also there's like sometimes guitar and there's like electric guitar and piano facing off in this beautiful mix. Let's go to segment 2. Did anybody else yet realize it's just me here? Sometimes I have a guest. Sometimes I even have a co-host. It's just me, just exploring Castlevania by myself. I'll bring some people in. We did some other recordings yesterday for some other shows, and I didn't have quite the energy to pump out another thing last night to do it. So here I am today, doing a little makeup tour by myself here. Segment 2. All I have written is search best ways to kill a vampire. Is there any local cost, equipment, obscurities? It's a weird sentence. Is there any? Okay, no, do we want to do this? Let me just look up most obscure way to kill a vampire. I'm using that word a lot today. Sunlight. Yeah, I knew that. Wooden stake. Yeah, knew that. Silver. Fire. Tearing its head off. Using vampire disease. Now that's a strange one. A vampire. It just says how to kill a vampire using vampire disease. And I feel like whenever I say the word vampire, I was kind of going into a Transylvanian accent. I'll try to stay away from it. Most of the time when someone talks about vampire disease, they're referring to porphyric hemophilia, which is the disease that, when introduced to the human bloodstream, will eventually turn that human into a vampire. Porphyric hemophilia is caused by a bacteria carried in all vampires, which can be transferred to a human via blood or saliva. The other vampire disease refers to the condition known as sangue debolosa, which translates to blood weakness in Italian. No one really knows what it is or how it is spread, but it is the only known disease that can kill a vampire. Okay, so that's something. We need to get this sangue debolosa. It is extremely rare and its origin is unknown, so the chance of somehow being able to inflict this disease on a vampire would be extremely difficult. However, I'm reading some of this verbatim. However, seeing as there are only a handful of ways a vampire can die, I figure I would include it here. This is from godsandmonsters.com. I think I knew all these except for, though I like vampire disease. And one of them is the thing that turns you into a vampire, that all vampires have it. And the other one is this other thing. I'm gonna pop this into the search really quick, just to see what comes up, because that is interesting to me. Okay, first article lists back to that same page I was on. And the other articles I'm getting are not in English. This is just a doctor's website. So take all that with a grain of salt. And good luck finding that vampire disease if... It sounds like there's not even... It sounds like it's made up. But that can't be true. That can't be true. I got something here called segment 3. And I did list some of these out because I knew I would be doing a solo thing, and I didn't want to get off track because I didn't want to do like any editing on it. So if I could just keep the editing to like a very minimum, that'd be great. This is kind of a note for myself right here. Any further editing would be hopefully not needed. Even that little pause there. Segment 3: the games as I know them, stressors and rewards. So I really didn't get that far in any of the games. I played a little bit of a couple of different ones. I'm playing the first one. It was, I believe, on the NES or SNES. Oh, it could be wrong. Well, I'm fighting the Medusa boss fight, the boss battle, and it's just some Medusa head flying around, and it's very difficult. The thing is that I'm up there. I'm at such little health by the time I get through all the booby traps, and let me tell you, this castle is full of booby traps. That when I finally get to Medusa, she's swinging around. I can't get a clean hit on her without getting blasted myself, and I'm watching the speedrunner do it. And he's just melting her. And I'm saying, what am I doing wrong? Another thing that kind of stressed me out was I wish that I could use my attacks while I'm on the stairs. Does that seem reasonable? Because enemies are flying at all different heights. And sometimes when I'm using these stairs to go upward in a platform, I want to be able to fight. And because I'm never moving that fast. Simon and all of his... And everybody in most of the Castlevania games has such a slow, it's like a steady pace, but it's not a run at all. And when you're going upstairs and you can't even use your weapon for some reason, I don't know, like maybe, I wish the animation was him crawling up the stairs on his hands and legs like a little kid. Like I had a lot of stairs in my house growing up, and I feel like I kind of dig that dog style running up the stairs. Extra speed, probably. See, and if he did that, I wish it gave him extra speed at least. Give me some reason why I can't either go faster or use my weapon on the stairs. Great games. I have a little list here that I pulled up from denofgeek.com that just says 15 best Castlevania monsters and bosses ranked. I'm definitely not going to go through all of them, but I did want to go to, I think in the beginning I said a few names. Yes, Slogra and Gabon from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I see here pictured it looks like a boss fight with two different monsters. One of them, like I said, is this pterodactyl human hybrid, like a skeleton hybrid, I guess. And the other looks more like a classic demon, like a blue looking monster with horns, or like a gargoyle looking thing. He might have Wolverine style claws. But it looks like you're fighting both of them. Here's what Donna Geek says. They first appear in Super Castlevania 4 as the endgame bosses. Simon Belmont fought separately. Oh, so they are fought separately in Castlevania 4. But they teamed up in Symphony of the Night as Alucard's first real challenge inside Dracula's castle. That's cool. So they span multiple games. They're once fought separately, and then once there's a dual battle in another game completely. That is very cool. Anyway, yeah, that's one of the villains. Let's take just like one more. Let's take Dragon Zombies from Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Now on screen, it shows just your very small guy against two very large dragons. They're taking up 3/4 of the screen. It says, Dragon Zombie. Okay. The left dragon spews fireballs while the right dragon spews electricity. It says, I like this. It's a real pain to fight. And when you finally take out one of the dragons, the other one regains a bunch of health by feeding on the corpse of its fallen companion. Wow. And of course, so this is just the last one I wanted to mention. His name is True Dracula from Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. So there's a Dracula in pretty much every game, obviously. He kind of regains, he's like a part of the Castlevania lore is that every 100 years, Dracula's essence sort of reconfigures on the planet, and so does his castle. And once in a while in the games also there'll be like a cult that's trying to raise him up or something like him up. This one though, True Dracula is different because he comes at you in this game, Portrait of Ruin. He comes at you at first with another enemy in different games, Death. So Death is just an enemy, as I mentioned before. So it's Dracula and Death at a tag team match against you. And then once they're both defeated, they go ahead and combine into True Dracula, who kind of looks like, from these pictures, he looks like a bat. human hybrid, basically. He was like a giant, he was like a humanoid bat. Kind of like the Skyrim vampires, a little bit. That very feral looking thing. So that seems pretty neat. I like what that is. I can't wait to fight him in Portrait of Ruin. Where the hell do I get that one? Well, I can't wait. These games are so hard. The only way you could beat these pre-internet, really, as far as I know, like you could beat them, but there are so many old Nintendo Power like write-in questions asking how to just do seemingly simple things in the game, where it's just that you just had no idea what you were doing. So I watched the speed run, this under 12-minute speed run, and this guy, I wish I remembered his name. I'm sorry, I'd give him a shout out. This guy, he's using a lot to his advantage that you don't think about. When you get hit by enemies, you get like vaulted a little bit, like you get sprung up in the air and pushed a direction. And so he's using this to jump upstairs faster, like taking damage on purpose to jump upstairs faster. And sometimes he's jumping on top of these bats that are flying so high, or these purple flaming skulls that are flying so high that he can jump on top of them. And then he gets vaulted onto the stage above, so the stairs are not even required. He'll also do stuff like he just kills bosses in like 1 second, melting them, jumping over entire enemies. He doesn't worry about the enemies. He doesn't worry about the candles on the walls or fire. Anything that's on fire in the game, you can usually hit it with your whip, and it will give you either points or life or hearts or items or things like this. He doesn't really care about most of it. It's badass. One thing I did notice is he fights death. That's the second to last boss before Dracula in the first game, and that's just reoccurring. Usually, death is a part of it. No spoilers, but in the anime, death is a part of it at some point as well. It's pretty cool in the first game on that last level before getting to Dracula. You actually see the inner workings of the castle. You see the map of it sometimes when you go in between levels, and when you first open the game up, you see it in the distance. But it's not a normal castle. There's arms and towers of it coming off at random, obtuse angles, and very small corridors connecting large things that are floating almost in midair. It looks super cool, and it looks like it doesn't look like it could really work. And so you're seeing inside the castle. And also this castle is known to just move about the countryside, like teleport different places and come up and all this. So you're seeing inside the back walls of the castle, and there's these giant gears and things moving and twisting. And you just know there's some kind of absurd, just like Lovecraftian machine back there working overtime to get Dracula's castle moving for infinity. Dracula also has a second form in a couple different games. I mentioned True Dracula earlier. In the first game, Dracula, it's the same fight. He doesn't have a different name or anything, but he comes back. At first, the fight with Dracula is interesting. You get to his coffin, and there's just like a mask on the floor. Or maybe it's a face, and the face floats up, and then the rest of the body incorporates beneath it in this kind of ghostly form. And from there, it's Dracula fighting you. It's like, is this always how Dracula is? He just a face floating around usually? What is that? Is that been canon in the Dracula story? I don't know if that's in all Castlevanias or just the first one. And then after you get him either to half health or whatever it is, he turns into what to me looks like the Charizard for Pokemon Green, but he's tinted like purple or blue. It's pretty interesting. And again, yeah, the end credits roll after that, and none of the real credits are there. And I did learn that none of the real credits are there because early game, I think it's Konami that made it, early game developers didn't want other developers to try and steal their, like they didn't want any headhunters to steal, to like come and take their people working on their games, I guess. And so they would put in fake credits, which I don't think you can get away with that anymore. That seems a little bit dastardly, honestly. Like, if they could, if some place wanted to pay more, but hey, we wouldn't have Castlevania then. And now, as always, it's time for one of the segments that comes up kind of often. It's our Dictionary of Demons deep dive. Let me pull it off the shelf here. You know it, you love it. This is the expanded and revised dictionary of demons. I'm going to flip to a random page here. Tell me when to stop. Okay, right there. Looks like we stopped on... What do we have? First one I saw was Molbet. Molbet. Now this is presumably a demon. According to the Munich Handbook, this demon holds the rank of prince in the hierarchy of hell. He is summoned forth in a spell concerned with revealing the identity of a thief. He is also connected in general with the art of divination and can help it to charm a human fingernail into showing all manner of images should the magician desire. Okay, let me read that again. Molbet can charm a human fingernail into showing all manner of images should the magician desire. That intrigues me enough to go to the see also, which is Munich Handbook. Let's see. It's pretty close, so I should be able to just pop it off. Munich Handbook, a 15th century Latin manuscript kept at the Bavarian State Library in Munich, filed under the designation CML 849. Because this first folio of the manuscript has been lost over time, there is no way to know the name of the author or the original title, if any, of this book. Its exact date of publication is also unknown. This book is a miscellany of magic with spells devoted mainly to illusion, divination, and compulsion. The author makes no effort to hide the fact that many of the spells are enacted with the help of spirits specifically classified as demons. Several of the demons described within the text are variations on names traditionally included among the 72 demons of the Goetia. The Munich Handbook probably would have gone unremarked in the Munich Library without the efforts of Professor Richard Keckelpfeffer. Richard Keckelpfeffer. I like what I said better. Who published a full edition of the Latin text along with the commentary and analysis in his 1994 book, Forbidden Rites. Now that does not have a C also, but I would like to, I'm going to just write Forbidden Rites down. 1977. And I'm just going to check in on that. Maybe next week we can talk a little more about that. Well, how do you like that? Learned a little something about some demons. Fingernail scrying, of course. I'm going to start getting really into that. Each one of my fingernails will show different images. It'll be like I'll never have to paint my fingernails again. They have little gifs on each of them with almost like mirrors into different worlds. That sounds beautiful. Segment 5. This is my last written segment, and this is just my thoughts on this. I called it Castlevania Show in Retrospect. Oh, that's not a good title. This is just me going over the first season. It's only 4 episodes, so I watched it pretty quick. They're all like 25 minutes long. I've seen it once or twice before, but I wanted to just watch it again and just so I could talk about it a little bit, especially since I was playing some of the games at the same time. I kind of made a complete picture of, or at least let me see. I could draw lines pretty easily between some different points in the games in the show. I'd say one thing, it has a hell of a strong beginning. I feel like I borrowed some of the imagery from that intro, and I put it into the intro of the show today. Things like Dracula's face becoming, just appearing in the sky, formed by a plethora of bats, and kind of blood spewing from all different orifices from people, and people getting ripped apart, and night creatures roaming through the countryside. These are no longer things that I described earlier, just things from the beginning of the show. It just immediately sets a tone that is pretty intense. And it also does a good way of weaving Dracula with, like, making Dracula have some humanity. He's clearly not a villain. He's just like a lost soul, or like soulless. I don't know what the stance of his soul particularly is, but he as a person is, or he is a monster. Gosh, it's hard to talk about Dracula. He's not a villain, I know that. Not always. Yeah, the style of the show is like just clear immediately, though. I feel like it all fits together very well. Borrows from the games what it wants to, and also just gets some colors from different places. The outfits and things, it almost feels like they had their own person making the outfits. Like, well, obviously they're getting drawn, but that all of the outfits either kind of match somehow, or the it seemed like if they were from somewhere else, they had a different style, which is just how things are drawn, I suppose. But it's very striking when you notice it. Like for example, Sypha, one of my favorite characters, and she's actually a character from one of the games as well. She's she's called a speaker, and she wears this like blue robe, and all the people in her speaker place kind of have this, but they're seen as basically the enemy of this town for the first season. But you can just see there's like there's a distinction between what they wear and what the commoners wear, and it's pretty cool. And then Trevor Belmont, the main character of the show, one of the main characters of the show, you can see that he kind of comes from royalty with how he's dressed, but he's kind of also been in this he's been in the woods. He's been out roughing it for a while as well. His whole family's pretty much destroyed, so he's doing his own thing. And then Alucard is also from the games. He's spoilers. That's Dracula backwards. It's Dracula's son. And then some other. So these are all Castlevania 3 characters. That's Sypha and Alucard. Trevor Belmont is from a different game, I believe. Or maybe, I don't know. But there is a different person from Castlevania 3 that I think Trevor takes a lot of qualities from. And that's a pirate named Grant Dynasty. And that might be my name from now on as well. Grant Dynasty. He's this swashbuckling dude, and I feel like Trevor Belmont in the anime basically has this pirate attitude. He does. He carries himself in this swarthy ass way, and I think he gets that from old Grant Dynasty. And I also just wanted to say that name a few times, just a few times. The show is great. The first season, it feels like it sets up a lot. Obviously, there's a lot that happens and gets ended, but it really is just the beginning. I'll talk about season 2 next week. I recommend watching these 4 first episodes. I'm actually going to pop over to the recommendations section now and say Castlevania season 1. It's worth the watch, and the best is yet to come. Like it opens up so much. If this first season is more of a classic gothic horror, season 2 becomes more of a worldly horror, and then season 3 is this like Lovecraftian horror, and season 4 is this all-encompassing thing. It's cool how it builds up. It doesn't start slow at all, but it has so much further to move, and I'm excited to watch through that and talk a little bit more. There's so many characters that come into play, some of my favorite people, some really cool magic. Sypha's so badass because she's like the Avatar, but like way cool. Like, I'm not going to start any debates on that, but she's like, she already has so many. She's shooting fire. She's doing things like shooting ice into the sky as steps, just floating in midair and just running up it, getting way high in the air and doing just air blasts and lasers, basically. Jesus shit. And you see her and you see Sypha and Trevor and Alucard's fighting styles change and evolve and intertwine throughout the series, which is really cool. By the end, we get some insane fights between all of them. And no spoilers because this thing came out. It is spoilery a little bit because this, I believe, came out in 2017. The anime did, and all these games are. Yeah, some of these games are 30 years old, so get with it. Get with it. And the other recommendation I have today, as I step out of segment 5 and talk about, I think I have so much to talk about the series that I might try to do the season 2 as segment 1 next episode if I can, just to really talk about it. Because now I want to talk about my second recommendation, which has been talked about on the show before. It's a game on the Switch and probably Steam and other consoles called Vampyr Survivor. Now this is like a $3 game. I got it for I think $2 after a sale and a bunch of gold points. Really cheap. It's a great game. It reminds me almost of a Geometry Wars where you're guiding a character across a thing across the screen with different auto attacks and upgrades while enemies burst at you. Sort of. It also has. It is. I'm not gonna try to describe it anymore. It's like Geometry Wars, but with vampires. And it takes a lot of the characters and weapons and things seem to be taken straight out of Castlevania, which is kind of why I recommend it. It feels like it's an offshoot of it. Nearly just taking it and not an offshoot, but just sort of taking it all with no repercussions, which is fine. I think that's fine. And I played I played probably 2 minutes of the music just on this, as if it, and that's not there. Hopefully, there's no repercussions on that either. I think we're all good. Me and Castlevania. I mean, this is the unofficial, official Castlevania podcast now, thanks to some clever marketing on the back end. And I think I'm gonna wrap it up. Let me pop. It's just me here, and I've been talking for long enough. So, and there's gonna be more of this. So get ready. Send in any recommendations on that, really. But I'll still just keep on going at the pace I got here. Like I said, I'm gonna probably try to play the next couple video games in the series after the first one. I want to watch speed runs for all of them. I want to watch the season 2 of Castlevania. I'll take some notes on that. We can walk through it. I'll probably make that more of the meat of next episode so we can really dig into it. Not spend so much time on just random things. We'll get to the obscure stuff when it comes, but no pressure. I don't want to just start listing things off. That's nowhere near as fun as me getting excited about stuff. So we'll do that. Keep your ears out for a couple shows we're working on. We're working on the X-Files rewatch. Me and Maya are doing the Pumpkin Files. That might be on its own feed. And then where else? Me and Dawson are co-hosting Chow Talk, which is a Sonic Adventure 2 deep dive. And we're talking a lot about the chows we're raising as well. In fact, I currently am sitting in the chow garden on my game, just letting time pass with these old boys. I love this crap. Keep your ears open for all this. Got a lot in the works. Check out Red Temple Radio on Etsy for original block prints of things like Godzilla, of Jason's mask. I just put 3 new acrylic pins up. Give us 5 stars everywhere. Apple Podcasts helps the most. We are streaming everywhere now. On YouTube too. It's all good. Check it out. That's it. See you later, you spooky little bone pillars.